The hammer hit wood and the sound cracked through the barn like a gunshot. Evelyn stood on the auction platform with her wrists still marked from rope that was no longer there. Men at the front leaned forward like vultures waiting for something to fall. The auctioneer pointed at her as if she were property already sold. He said, "Last asset of Judge Harrow, unpaid debts, no protection." A man laughed and said, "She looks less like a judge's daughter and more like trouble that finally got caught." Another voice said, "Bet she cries fast." Evelyn did not move. She stared straight ahead at nothing. Her throat burned but her eyes stayed dry. Somewhere behind the crowd a chair scraped and the sheriff whispered, "Keep it clean, no chaos today." The auctioneer raised his hand again and called for bids. Silence answered him like a wall. Panic never came for her, only humiliation that sat heavy in the air like smoke. The auctioneer cleared his throat and called again. First bid came from a cattleman in a dirty coat. Low price, like she was damaged stock. Another man raised it just to mock the first. They laughed after every number. Evelyn heard her father's name thrown like trash. "Judge Harrow ruined half this county, that man deserved worse." Someone said, "This is justice finally." The sheriff stepped closer to the platform and said, "No heroics, just finish this clean." Evelyn finally spoke, her voice small but sharp, "I am not a thing." The crowd ignored her like wind. No one bid to save her, only to own silence around her. The auctioneer looked tired, like even cruelty bored him. He asked for final interest. No one answered. A wagon wheel creaked outside and the crowd shifted without knowing why. A man stepped in late, limping slightly, coat torn at the shoulder, eyes avoiding attention. Silas did not look like someone who belonged in a place like this anymore. He paused at the back, watching the platform like it hurt to see it. Someone whispered, "That's the rancher from the burned land." Another said, "He's got nothing left to lose." The auctioneer noticed him and smirked, "Well, look what crawled in." More silence fell, thicker now. Silas walked forward slowly, each step measured like it cost him something. Evelyn turned her head for the first time. Their eyes met briefly, then broke. The sheriff said under his breath, "Don't do this, not today." Silas stopped at the edge of the platform and spoke low, "I want her." The crowd laughed instantly, sharp and cruel. Someone yelled, "You buying trouble or charity?" Silas did not smile. He said again, "Not buying. Just taking responsibility for her being left here." The room went still like a held breath. The auctioneer blinked, unsure if he should continue. He said, "That's not a legal bid." Silas replied, "Then make it one." The sheriff stepped forward, studying Silas like he was a problem from the past. He said, "You don't have standing here." Silas answered, "I don't want standing. I want her out of this." Evelyn finally stepped forward on her own. The ropes were gone but the mark remained on her wrists. She said, "Why are you doing this?" Silas looked at her and for a moment his voice broke, "Because I know what it is to be left like nothing." The crowd murmured. The auctioneer looked to the sheriff. The sheriff hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Fine. Transfer her. No record of ownership. Just remove her." Evelyn stared at Silas and said, "I am not yours." Silas replied, "Good. I don't want you to be. I want you safe somewhere that still has walls." Evelyn stepped down from the platform slowly, each step heavier than the last. The crowd did not stop her. No one spoke as she passed through them like cold air. Silas turned and walked toward the exit without looking back. She hesitated for a second, then followed. The sheriff watched but did not intervene. The auctioneer dropped his gaze as if the paper had lost meaning. Outside, the wagon waited. Silas opened the door. Evelyn climbed in. Neither spoke. The barn behind them stayed silent as wheels began to turn away from what she used to be. But no one called her back. Not even the town. Not anymore. Now. The wagon hit a deep rut and Evelyn's shoulder slammed softly into the wooden side. She didn't react. Silas didn't look back. The wheels kept grinding like something tired of moving but forced to continue anyway. Dust rose behind them, swallowing the auction house until it felt unreal, like it had never existed. Only silence remained between them, heavy and close. Silas kept one hand on the reins, the other resting near his leg where the limp showed itself with every turn. He glanced once at the empty seat beside him. Not at Evelyn. At the empty space. Evelyn noticed it. She said nothing for a long time. The wind moved through her hair, but she didn't fix it. Her wrists still carried the faint red lines of rope. She stared forward, then finally spoke. "Who sat there?" Silas didn't answer right away. The horses pulled steady. Evelyn again, sharper this time. "I said, who sat there?" Silas exhaled slowly. "No one anymore." "That's not an answer." "It is the only one you're getting." Silence again. The wagon creaked louder than their breathing. Evelyn turned slightly. "You don't look like someone who saves people." Silas gave a short, dry laugh. "I didn't save you. You took me." "I postponed something worse." Evelyn frowned. "That sounds like a threat." "It's a memory." The road stretched ahead, broken and long. Fence posts leaned like tired men. A distant ridge burned orange under fading daylight. Evelyn shifted. "They all hated me in there." Silas didn't respond. She continued anyway. "They didn't even know me. They hated my name first." Silas finally said, "Names are enough out here." Evelyn looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means people don't need truth to decide what you are." Another silence. The wagon rolled on. Evelyn's voice lowered. "My father wasn't perfect." Silas nodded once. "No judge is. They said he ruined half this county." Silas tightened the reins slightly. "Sometimes judges just see what others don't want seen." Evelyn studied him now. "You knew him." Silas hesitated too long. That hesitation answered her. She leaned forward slightly. "You knew my father." Silas kept his eyes forward. "I worked near him. Long time ago. And now I'm sitting next to a stranger who won't even say my father's name." Silas finally looked at her. "Saying his name won't change what they did to him." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "What did they do to him?" Silas didn't answer. The wind grew colder. A mile later, Evelyn spoke again, quieter. "You had a child's blanket on that seat." Silas's grip tightened instantly. Evelyn noticed. Silas said flatly, "Don't." "I saw it." "Forget it." "I can't." Silas pulled the reins slightly too hard. The wagon jolted. He didn't look at her. "That seat is not for conversation." Evelyn didn't back down. "It was for someone who isn't here." Silas's voice dropped. "Enough." Evelyn held his stare now. "What happened?" Silas didn't speak for a long time. The wagon wheels filled the silence like grinding bone. Then, finally, "Fire." One word. Evelyn blinked. "A house fire?" Silas nodded once. "That's it?" Silas swallowed hard. "Barn. House. Everything." Evelyn waited. Silas added, quieter. "My wife. My daughter." The words landed between them like something dropped into water. Evelyn looked away first. Silas continued, not stopping now. "There was nothing left to bury that made sense. So I stopped burying things at all." Evelyn's voice softened slightly. "I'm sorry." Silas gave a humorless shake of his head. "Don't be. Sorry doesn't rebuild wood." A beat. Then Evelyn asked, "Was it an accident?" Silas didn't answer immediately. That delay was worse than words. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. It wasn't. Silas finally said, "No." The wagon creaked louder again. From behind them, faint hoofbeats echoed. Silas heard it instantly. His posture changed. Evelyn noticed. "What is it?" "Don't look back." "I'm not blind." "Stay still." Evelyn turned slightly anyway. Far behind them, dust rose. Riders. 3, maybe 4. Evelyn whispered, "Are they following us?" Silas didn't answer. That was the answer. Evelyn sat up straighter. "Why would anyone follow us?" Silas said quietly, "Because nothing in this county stays unclaimed." The riders stayed distant. "Not chasing yet." "Watching." Evelyn looked at Silas. "They want me." Silas corrected, "They want what you represent." "I don't represent anything." Silas finally glanced at her again. "That's what they think too. And that's why they're wrong." The wagon rolled forward into a narrow stretch between dry trees. Silas spoke low. "Listen to me carefully." Evelyn didn't respond. Silas repeated, sharper. "Listen." She nodded once. "If anything happens," he said, "you run left." "Not right. Left always leads to open land." Evelyn frowned. "I'm not running." Silas looked at her fully now. "You might not get to choose." The riders slowed behind them, still not closing in. Silas added, "And don't trust silence in this place. Silence is where decisions are made for you." Evelyn stared ahead again. The empty seat beside Silas swayed slightly with the wagon's motion. She said quietly, "You still talk to it." Silas didn't deny it. He only said, "Drive straight." The wagon kept moving. Behind them, the riders stayed just far enough to be patient. And the road ahead waited like it already knew what was coming next. The wagon stopped without warning, like it had reached something it refused to approach further. Evelyn felt the silence change before she even saw the house. Silas didn't announce it. He just tightened the reins once, and the horses slowed into a tired halt. The structure stood ahead like it had been left mid-breath. One side was whole. The other was burned down into black bone and ash. No proper fence, only broken posts leaning inward like they had given up on keeping anything out. Evelyn stepped down first. Dust hit her boots immediately. The ground was uneven, scorched in places, softer in others like it had remembered fire too well. Silas followed slower. His limp was more visible now. He didn't look at the burned section directly. Evelyn did. She said quietly, "This wasn't just damage." Silas didn't answer. She turned slightly. "Something happened here." Silas walked past her. Everything happened here. Inside the house, the air felt split. One half smelled like old wood and soap. The other half still carried something faintly bitter, like smoke that never fully left. A table stood in the center. 3 plates. 3 chairs. Only 2 pulled out. Evelyn stopped. "You still eat like they're here." Silas removed his hat slowly. "No." "Then why?" "Because moving it didn't change the number." Silence. Evelyn walked closer. The plates were clean. Too clean. Like someone kept checking them. She asked, "How long ago?" Silas didn't look at her. "Long enough." That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. A wind moved through the broken side of the house, slipping through burned beams like breath through ribs. Evelyn stepped toward the hallway. "Where do I sleep?" Silas pointed without turning. "Back room. Door locks." "That's it." "That's enough." She hesitated. "And you?" "I don't sleep much." Evelyn studied him. "You said that like it's normal." Silas finally met her eyes. "Out here, it is." She walked down the hall. Each step changed the sound. Wood on one side was solid. On the other, hollow. A door at the end stood slightly open. Evelyn paused. This room burned. Silas behind her, sharply. Don't go in there. Why? Because it doesn't need you. That doesn't make sense. It does if you were here when it happened. She turned slightly. Were you? Silas didn't answer fast enough. That pause again. Evelyn pushed the door open anyway. The smell hit first. Old smoke layered under dust. The room was mostly gone, but parts still held shape. A child's bed frame twisted black. A wall half standing. A piece of painted wood with faded letters no one bothered to clean. Silas grabbed her wrist. Not hard. Just fast. Enough. Evelyn looked at his hand. Let go. Silas didn't. I said let go. He did. Evelyn didn't move back. You're afraid of this room. Silas exhaled through his teeth. I respect it. That's not the same thing. It is when it takes people. Silence between them thickened. Evelyn asked quietly, who died here? Silas's voice dropped. My wife. My daughter. I know that. No. You know words. He stepped back from the doorway like distance mattered. Evelyn stayed in place. You said fire. Silas nodded once. That's it? Silas looked at the burned wall. It started in the barn. Spread too fast. Evelyn frowned. Too fast. Silas didn't explain. She stepped out of the room finally. The door stayed open behind her like it refused closure. Down the hall, she found another door. Locked. She touched it. What's here? Silas appeared behind her instantly. Not yours. Evelyn turned. You keep saying that. Silas replied, because you keep reaching. A beat. Then she asked, do you hear things at night? Silas's jaw tightened. Evelyn continued. Footsteps. Silas didn't answer. That's a yes. It's the house settling. I don't think houses settle like that. Silas moved past her. You think too much. Evelyn followed him back toward the main room. No. I just notice things. Silas stopped near the table. Not everything needs noticing. She looked at the plates again. Someone still sets this. Silas said, habit. That's not habit. That's refusal. Silas didn't argue. A distant sound came from outside. Wind maybe. Or something moving through dry grass. Evelyn turned slightly. You have neighbors. Silas shook his head. Not close ones. Then who watches the road? Silas went still. Evelyn saw it. The pause. She stepped closer. Someone is watching. Silas finally said, this land remembers people who don't pay attention. That's not an answer either. It's the only one that keeps you alive. Evelyn looked toward the burned wing again. What are you not telling me? Silas's voice softened slightly, but not kindly. More than you're ready to carry. Evelyn didn't look away. Try me. Silas studied her for a long moment. Then quietly, not everything here was fire. Before she could respond, a faint sound came from upstairs. A step. Then another. Evelyn froze. Did you hear that? Silas didn't move. Another step. Slow. Measured. Evelyn whispered, there's someone upstairs. Silas said instantly, no. The steps stopped. Silence returned. Evelyn didn't blink. That wasn't the house. Silas finally spoke, low and controlled. Go to your room. Lock it. And you. I'll handle it. Evelyn stared at him. Handle what? Silas turned toward the stairs. Just go. But neither of them moved yet. Because somewhere above them, something shifted again, like it was deciding whether to come down. The first knock came just after midnight. Not loud. Not angry. Just patient. Evelyn woke instantly. Her eyes opened in the dark like she had never been asleep at all. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that felt arranged, not natural. Knock. Pause. Knock again. Evelyn sat up slowly. Silas. No answer. Another knock. Softer this time. She swung her legs off the bed and stood. The floor was cold enough to bite through skin. She walked to the door and stopped. Knock. She whispered, Who is it? No answer. Silence stretched too long. Then the knock came again. Evelyn opened the door. The hallway was empty. No shadow. No movement. Only the faint smell of old smoke drifting from somewhere deeper in the house. She stepped out slowly. Hello? Nothing. Then she saw it. Footprints. Small. Wet. Mud pressed into wood like someone had walked through rain and ash at the same time. Evelyn froze. No. She looked down the hall. The prints led away from her door. Straight. Calm. Like whoever made them knew exactly where they were going. She followed. Each step she took matched a sound she didn't want to hear. The house answered with soft creaks, like it was breathing through broken ribs. Down the hallway. Past the dining room. The table still sat there. 3 plates. 2 chairs pulled out. 1 pushed in too neatly. Evelyn whispered, This is not real. The prince continued past the table. Toward the burned wing. She stopped. No. But her feet kept moving anyway. The hallway narrowed as she approached the sealed door. The same one Silas said not to touch. The footprints stopped right in front of it. Evelyn stood still. The wood of the door was old, blackened at the edges, reinforced like someone had tried to make it forget what it was hiding. A sound came from inside. Not a knock. A scratch. Slow. Careful. Evelyn's voice broke slightly. Hello. The scratch stopped. Silence. Then, softly. A breath. Evelyn stepped back instantly. Silas. No answer. The door shuddered. Not violently. Not breaking. Just testing. Like something on the other side wanted to know if she would run. She did not move. Who is in there? She said. Nothing. Then the scratch returned. Evelyn backed away 1 step. The hallway behind her felt longer now, like it had stretched. She turned. Silas was there. Standing at the end of the hall. Barefoot. Shirt half-buttoned. Eyes sharp but not awake. He looked at her first. Then the door. Then the footprints. His voice was low. You saw them. Evelyn swallowed. They led me here. Silas walked forward slowly. You shouldn't have followed. I didn't choose to. Silas stopped near her. You always choose. That's the problem. Another sound came from the door. A soft thump. Silas didn't look at it. Go back. Evelyn shook her head. Something is inside. Silas said immediately, No. It moved. No. It breathed. Silas turned sharply. I said no. The door shuddered again, stronger this time. Evelyn stepped closer to Silas. What did you put in there? Silas didn't answer. Evelyn pushed again. "What is in that room?" Silas finally spoke, voice tight. "Nothing that belongs to you." The door gave a single long scrape from inside. Evelyn flinched. Silas noticed. For a second, something in his face changed. Not fear. Recognition. Evelyn saw it. "You've heard that before," she said quietly. Silas didn't respond. The silence became heavier than the sound. Evelyn whispered, "In the night." Silas's jaw tightened. Another thump came from inside the sealed room. Then a pause. Then knock. Just like earlier. Patient. Evelyn looked at Silas. "That's not a house sound." Silas stepped forward and placed his hand on the door. Evelyn grabbed his arm instantly. "Don't." Silas didn't move his hand. "Go back to your room. I'm not leaving you here." Silas turned his head slightly. "I'm not the one inside." A beat. Then the door whispered again. Not words. Not language. Just presence. Evelyn stepped back slowly. "What happened in there?" Silas's voice dropped. "Fire." "That's not enough anymore." Silas finally looked at her fully. "It started in the barn. But it didn't stay there." Evelyn frowned. "What does that mean?" Silas didn't answer. The door scratched again. Longer this time. Like nails dragging memory. Evelyn whispered, "It knows me." Silas snapped instantly. "No. It reacted when I came close." Silas turned sharply toward her. "Everything reacts in this house. That doesn't make it alive." Evelyn's voice shook slightly. "Then what is it?" Silence. Silas didn't answer. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket. A heavy iron bolt. He slid it into the door lock. Click. The scratching stopped instantly. Evelyn froze. "It stopped when you locked it." Silas didn't look at her. "It always does." A long pause. Then Evelyn said quietly, "But it started because I came." Silas hesitated. That hesitation again. Evelyn saw it clearly now. Silas spoke softer, almost unwilling. "Don't go near this part of the house again." "Or what?" Silas looked at her. "Or you'll start remembering things that don't belong to you." Evelyn stared at him. "Whose memories are they?" Silas didn't answer. The hallway behind them felt colder now. The locked door stayed still. Too still. Evelyn stepped back slowly toward her room. Silas didn't follow. But before she reached her door, one last sound came from behind them. Not a knock. Not a scratch. Just a soft voice, almost lost inside wood. Calling nothing. Or someone. And Silas closed his eyes like he had heard it before. Morning arrived without warmth. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. Evelyn noticed it first while sitting at the edge of her bed. The air was tighter. Like something had entered and refused to leave. Downstairs, Silas was already awake. No breakfast. No fire. Just standing near the window, watching the road. Evelyn came down slowly. "You didn't sleep." Silas didn't look at her. Didn't need to. A distant sound broke the morning silence. Hooves. Not fast. Not urgent. Controlled. Silas's jaw tightened slightly. "Stay inside." Evelyn stopped. "Who is it?" Silas finally turned. "Someone who doesn't knock like last night." The horse stopped outside. Then boots. 3 men. But only one walked to the door. Silas didn't move from the window. The knock came anyway. Firm. Official. Evelyn whispered, "That's the sheriff." Silas gave a short nod. The knock came again. Silas said flatly, "Don't open it." Evelyn frowned. "It's your door too." Silas answered, "Not to him." Another knock. Stronger. Then a voice. Calm. Familiar. Controlled. "Silas. Open up." Silas didn't respond. Evelyn stepped closer. "Why is he here?" Silas said quietly, "Because people like him don't leave things alone." The knock came again. Evelyn walked to the door before Silas could stop her. Silas said sharply, "Evelyn." She opened it. Cold morning air pushed inside. The sheriff stood there with 2 deputies behind him. Clean coat. Clean boots. The kind of clean that meant violence was organized. He smiled slightly. "There she is." Evelyn didn't step back. Silas appeared behind her instantly. The sheriff's eyes moved to Silas. "Still breathing." Silas replied, "Unfortunately for you." A brief silence. Then the sheriff looked past them into the house. "Nice place. Didn't think you'd keep it standing after everything." Silas said nothing. The sheriff stepped closer without permission. "We're here for a simple check." Evelyn frowned. "Check what?" The sheriff looked at her now. "Welfare. Safety. County concern." Silas muttered, "Since when?" The sheriff smiled more. "Since the county remembers it owns more than land." Evelyn stiffened. "I'm not property." The sheriff tilted his head. "No one said you were." Silas cut in. "Then leave." The sheriff ignored him and reached into his coat. "Paper. Stamped. Official." He held it up casually. "Judge Harrow's estate is under review. Debts unresolved. Assets unclear." Evelyn froze slightly at the name. Silas noticed. The sheriff continued, "Until that's settled, anything tied to him is unstable." Evelyn stepped forward. "My father is dead." The sheriff nodded. "Correct. And you're here for paperwork." "Correct again." Silas stepped between them slightly. "Say what you really want." The sheriff's smile faded just a little. Then he said, "We want cooperation." Silas answered immediately, "You won't get it." The sheriff sighed like this was inconvenient. "You always were difficult." Evelyn looked between them. "You knew him." The sheriff glanced at her. "Everyone knew your father." Silas said quietly, "Not like he wants you to think." The sheriff's eyes sharpened slightly. "Careful." Silas didn't move. "Or what?" "A beat." The deputies shifted slightly behind the sheriff. The sheriff changed tone again. "Calm. Friendly. We're not here to fight. Just verify the girl is safe." Evelyn snapped, "I'm not a girl." The sheriff nodded slowly. "Right. Judge's daughter." Silas said, "She's under my protection." The sheriff laughed softly. "Your protection doesn't mean anything anymore, Silas." Silas didn't react. But Evelyn saw it. Something in him tightened. The sheriff continued, "This county is reorganizing. Old debts are being settled." Evelyn frowned. "What debts?" Silas said quickly, "Don't answer him." But the sheriff already saw her curiosity. That was enough. He pulled something else from his coat. A ring. Gold. Heavy. Evelyn's breath caught instantly. Silas went still. The sheriff held it between 2 fingers. "Recognize this?" Evelyn whispered, "That's my father's." Silas stepped forward. "Where did you get that?" The sheriff smiled. "From evidence." Evelyn shook her head. That was buried with him. The sheriff corrected gently, things don't stay buried when people keep digging. Silas's voice dropped. Take it off your hand. The sheriff looked at him. Make me. Silas didn't move. The air changed. The deputies shifted again. Evelyn stepped forward, voice shaking but firm. Give it back. The sheriff looked at her now. Or what? Silence. Evelyn didn't answer. But she didn't back down either. The sheriff studied her for a moment, then tucked the ring back into his coat. Careful, he said lightly. Family objects have a way of disappearing permanently. Silas spoke coldly. You didn't come here for safety checks. The sheriff sighed. No. I came to remind you both that nothing here belongs outside the system. Evelyn whispered, My father tried to fix your system. The sheriff's expression changed slightly at that. Just a flicker. Then gone. He tried, the sheriff agreed. And he failed. Silas stepped forward again. Get off my land. The sheriff nodded slowly. We will. For now. He turned slightly, then paused. One last look at Evelyn. Don't get comfortable, he said softly. Things that are kept have a way of being reclaimed. Then he turned and walked away. The deputies followed. Hooves faded into distance again. Silas shut the door slowly. No slam. Just control. Evelyn stood still. Silas didn't look at her. She whispered, That ring, it shouldn't be with him. Silas finally spoke. Nothing he has should be. Evelyn turned. Then why does he have it? Silas stared at the floor for a long moment. Then quietly, Because your father wasn't just killed. Evelyn went still. Silas continued, He was erased carefully. Silence filled the house again. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt watched. Silas didn't speak for a long time after the sheriff left. The house felt louder without him. Not from sound. From absence. Evelyn stood near the table, staring at where the ring had been shown like it had burned itself into her memory. Silas was already moving toward the back door, coat in hand, movements tight and controlled like he was holding something inside his ribs that wanted out. Come, he said finally. Evelyn didn't move at first. Where? Silas didn't turn. If you're going to ask questions, ask them where the ground remembers answers. That made no sense. But she followed anyway. Outside, the air was sharper than before. The land stretched flat and tired, dry grass bending like it had given up resisting wind. Silas walked ahead without checking if she kept up. Evelyn caught up beside him. You said my father wasn't just killed. Silas didn't answer. She pressed again. You said erased. Silas finally spoke. There's a difference. What difference? He died once. Then they made sure nothing he touched could speak again. Evelyn slowed slightly. That's not possible. Silas looked at her briefly. It already happened. They passed the barn. Burn marks still faint along old wood, like memory that refused to fade completely. Evelyn noticed how Silas avoided looking directly at it. She stopped. This is where it started. Silas didn't deny it. Keep moving. But she didn't. Fire doesn't do that kind of damage unless someone helps it, she said. Silas turned sharply. Don't start guessing things you don't understand. Evelyn stepped closer. Then explain it. Silas held her gaze for a long second. Then turned away again. Not here. They walked behind the barn. The ground changed. Harder. Older. Like it had been walked on more by secrets than people. A small hill rose behind the structure, and at its center was a stone ring half swallowed by dirt. Evelyn slowed. That's a well. Silas nodded once. Was. They stopped at its edge. The opening was covered with a warped wooden lid, nailed shut years ago but never fully trusted. Iron straps held it down like someone was afraid it might open on its own. Evelyn frowned. "Why is it sealed?" Silas didn't answer immediately. Then, because some things don't drown properly. A cold feeling settled in Evelyn's chest. What was put in there? Silas looked at the well like it offended him. Truth that didn't fit inside a house. Evelyn stepped closer. "You brought me here for a metaphor." Silas gave a short, humorless breath. "No." He knelt slowly and placed his hand on one of the iron straps. His fingers tightened. Evelyn watched him carefully. "You're shaking." "I'm steady." "You're not." Silas ignored that. He pulled a rusted nail free with effort. Wood groaned slightly under pressure. Evelyn stepped back. "What are you doing?" Silas said quietly, "Showing you why your father stopped trusting doors." Another nail came out. Then another. The lid shifted slightly. A sound came from inside the well. Not water. Not wind. Something lower. Evelyn froze. "Stop." Silas didn't. She grabbed his wrist. "I said stop." He looked at her hand. Then at her face. "You wanted answers," he said. "I didn't want this." Silas's voice dropped. "Neither did I." A final nail broke free. The lid shifted further. A smell rose up. Old. Metallic. Wrong. Evelyn stepped back instantly, covering her nose. "What is that?" Silas didn't answer. Instead, he pushed the lid just enough to open a narrow gap. Darkness stared back. Then, a soft scrape from below. Evelyn's voice broke. "There's something alive in there." Silas shook his head once. "Not alive." "Then what?" Silas didn't respond. From inside the well, a faint sound emerged again. Like paper moving underwater. Evelyn whispered, "That's voices." Silas finally said, "Names." Evelyn turned sharply. "Whose names?" Silas stood slowly. "The ones your father wrote down before they buried him." Evelyn went still. "He wrote names into a well." Silas nodded once. He didn't trust paper anymore. The sound from below grew slightly clearer. Not words yet. Just fragments. Evelyn stepped closer despite herself. "I can hear something." Silas grabbed her arm instantly. "Don't lean in." Evelyn resisted. "You said my father's name is in there." Silas tightened his grip. "I said he left proof." "Proof of what?" Silas looked at her hard. "Of who helped him disappear." A long silence. Then Evelyn whispered, "The sheriff." Silas didn't confirm. He didn't deny it either. That was enough. Evelyn stared at the opening. "Why keep it here?" Silas released her arms slowly. "Because no one looks in wells unless they're already broken." Another sound came from below. Closer now. Like something responding to attention. Evelyn stepped back. "Close it." Silas hesitated. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Then he said quietly, "It already knows we're here." Evelyn's breath shook. "What knows?" Silas looked at the dark gap. "Whatever your father was trying to bury." From inside the well, a final sound rose. Not a voice. Not a name. Something between both. Evelyn stepped back again, faster this time. "No. No, I don't want." Silas slammed the lid shut. The sound cut instantly. Silence returned. But it didn't feel like peace. It felt like restraint. Silas hammered one strap back down with shaking force. Then another. His breathing was heavier now. Evelyn stood frozen. That was inside the whole time. Silas didn't look at her. Yes. And you kept it closed. Silas answered quietly, I tried. A pause. Then Evelyn asked, what happens if it opens? Silas stood up slowly, eyes still on the sealed wood. Then, he said, the county remembers everything it agreed to forget. He turned to leave. Evelyn didn't follow immediately. She looked at the sealed well one last time. And for a fraction of a second, it sounded like something beneath the wood was listening back. The first sign wasn't smoke. It was silence. The kind that arrives too clean, too sudden, like the land itself has stopped breathing. Evelyn noticed it while standing near the kitchen table. Silas was already moving, faster than she had seen him move since she arrived. He grabbed his coat. Inside, he said immediately. Evelyn frowned. What's wrong? Silas didn't answer. Outside, a distant crack broke the air. Not thunder. Gunfire. Silas froze for half a second. Then everything changed. Now, he said sharply. Evelyn stepped back. Who is it? Silas moved toward the door. People who don't announce themselves twice. Another crack. Closer this time. A window shattered somewhere near the barn. Evelyn flinched. They're shooting at us. Silas grabbed a rifle from behind the door. Stay behind walls. Evelyn didn't move. I'm not hiding while you. Evelyn, he snapped. That stopped her. Silas met her eyes. Listen to me once without fighting it. A beat. Then softer, but still urgent. Please. Another shot. Silas moved outside. The moment the door opened, the world changed shape. Wind carried dust. And now smoke. Not thick yet, but present. Moving like something deciding where to grow. 3 riders appeared near the edge of the property. Faces covered. No markings. No hesitation. Evelyn stepped out behind Silas despite everything. Silas turned instantly. I told you. I'm not inside. Another shot cracked past them, hitting wood near the porch. Silas raised his rifle. Then stay low. The riders spread out. Not random. Controlled. Military in behavior, not appearance. Evelyn whispered, they're organized. Silas didn't answer. He fired once. One rider dropped behind his horse. The others didn't stop. Evelyn grabbed a shovel leaning against the porch instinctively. What do they want? Silas reloaded. Everything I still have. A rider swung wide, aiming toward the barn. Evelyn saw it. The barn, she said instantly. They're going for the barn. Silas looked. That moment of hesitation again. Too human. Too dangerous. Go inside, he ordered. Evelyn didn't. Instead, she ran toward the barn. Silas shouted, Evelyn! But another shot forced him to turn. The riders pressed harder now. The attack wasn't chaotic. It was pressure. Forcing choice. Evelyn reached the barn door and slammed it open. Inside was dry, empty, old wooden memory. She looked around quickly. What do you want from here? She muttered. Then she saw it. Oil cans stacked near the back wall. Old. Too old. Silas appeared at the entrance, breathing heavier now. Get out of there. Evelyn pointed. They're targeting fuel. Silas's eyes narrowed instantly. Understanding hit him. They want it to burn again, he said. Evelyn froze. Again. Silas stepped inside just enough to pull her back. Not this time. Another shot hit the barn wall. Wood splintered. Silas shoved Evelyn behind a support beam. Stay there. Evelyn grabbed his arm. You're shaking. I'm fine. You're not. Silas looked at her sharply. This is not about me. Evelyn didn't let go. It is if you freeze. That landed. Silas exhaled once, controlled. Then nodded slightly. Stay close, he said. Outside, movement shifted. The riders were repositioning. One voice called out, muffled by distance. Not a shout. A command. Evelyn whispered, they're waiting for something. Silas leaned slightly to look out. They're testing. Testing what? Silas didn't answer. Then another shot hit near the barn roof. A beam cracked. Dust fell. Evelyn coughed. We can't hold this. Silas grabbed the rifle tighter. We don't have to hold it. We have to survive it. A pause. Then Evelyn said quietly, I can help. Silas looked at her like he was about to refuse immediately. But something in her face stopped him. He handed her a small weapon. Light. Old. Don't think, he said. Just aim. Evelyn nodded once. Outside, one rider moved closer. Too close. Evelyn stepped forward. Silas whispered, wait. But she fired first. The shot missed. Silas closed his eyes for half a second. Not like that. Evelyn swallowed hard. I'm trying. Silas stepped beside her now. Again. The rider advanced. Silas fired. This time the rider fell back. The others shifted. Something changed in their approach. They weren't just attacking now. They were reacting. Evelyn noticed it. They're adjusting. Silas nodded. They didn't expect resistance. A pause. Then he said quietly, they expected fear. Evelyn looked at him. And you're not giving them that. Silas gave a bitter half-smile. Not today. Another shot echoed from outside. But now it was further. Retreating. The riders began pulling back. Not fully gone. Just withdrawing. Silas lowered his rifle slowly. They'll come again. Evelyn's hands were still shaking slightly. Why now? Silas looked toward the barn wall, where smoke marks had started forming from earlier impact. Then he said, because everything we touched in this house is starting to surface. Evelyn frowned. The well. Silas didn't answer. But his silence confirmed it again. Outside, hoofbeats faded into distance. The silence returned. But it was different now. Not empty. Waiting. Evelyn stepped closer to Silas. They're not just trying to kill you. Silas nodded once. No. He looked at the barn. Then the house. Then at her. They're trying to finish what your father started.